Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Friday. It's Friday, everyone. We're winding up the week here, getting ready for the weekend. We're going to go to 8 o'clock tomorrow. We've been doing 5 a.m. this week. And there's 69 people live, which is reasonably impressive. They got oppressive. It's reasonably impressive because we've been getting used to 8 o'clock. We've been sleeping in, and now we're saying, sorry, you want the Bhagavad time, you got to wake up at 5 a.m., which means you got to wake up earlier than 5 a.m. most likely. So it's great, and I think though we're starting back Monday at 8. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
Well, it's helpful for me for different reasons, but yeah, I mean, I'm ready for 8.
Mara does have her elaborate Hindu rituals in the morning. She needs time for that. And I need to sleep until 7:45. So that's my story. Just kidding. I'm an early riser. I'm a morning person, always have been.
Good for you.
Okay. Well, I thought yesterday's nugget thing was quite profound. I thought that was like the nuggets is the most profound nugget of them all. Life without a map. And you know what I did yesterday? I reflected all day about my life before, because I always liked spiritual things. I read spiritual books. I'd go to spiritual bookstores. Those in the old days, they had those yoga bookstores where they have like crystals and, St. Thomas Aquinas and, the Egyptian, what is it? The Tibetan Scroll of the Dead or whatever that's called. I had them all. Siddhartha.
Dead Sea Scrolls, Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Sea Scrolls, the Nazarene, Jesus.
Native American wisdom.
Anyway, I would just like imbibe all that stuff, but it gave me no practical, like, okay, now what? I read it. I read the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now what? I read the Lost Teachings of Jesus. You ever read that? It's a good one too.
The Essene Gospel of Peace.
The Essene Gospels, that's what it was. Read it. Now what do I do about it? What's a practical way that I can apply wisdom and it keeps me on track? It keeps my car on the road. And this is sort of what I was hankering for when I found out about a sadhana, which means, if you don't know what that means, it means like a daily spiritual practice. And it's buffered by appropriate behavior and inappropriate behavior. Stuff that's going to get, when I say inappropriate, it's not like in a shaming way that we grew up with. It's a way that, look, I don't want to drive my car off the cliff. What's the way to drive on this road? It's a thin road. I'm driving in the mountains. There's a cliff on one side. What's the, it's like a narrow, ever drive in the George Washington? You don't drive. But on the,
I've driven across the George Washington Bridge.
You've driven across the George Washington Bridge. Okay. They have those big cement, like guardrails. And like the lane is like this big, and it's like you can't check your phone. You can't, if you anything, you're gonna scrape the side of your car or hit another car. So it's like, this is like the road we have to drive on in this world.
The road is
it's
narrow.
thin, it's narrow, it's dangerous. And so we need some instructions. We need some guidelines. Yeah, for our benefit. We're not shaming. You better not hit that guardrail. It's not like that. It's like, hey, don't hit the guardrail. Be aware, be conscious, hold the wheel steady. And it's giving us that instruction that we need. I'm super grateful. When I was nuggetless, that was a problematic time in my life. I just didn't know what to do. I would have read it. I would have done it.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Let's say I'm a person that listens to Wisdom of the Sages every day.
Yeah.
Say I'm an other, and I live in some place where like I'm a little bit distant from other people that are practicing this, and I'm kind of new to it. And so, what would be without knowing this person, what would you suggest they do to kind of solidify their practice a little bit, or what sadhana would you recommend?
Good question. Well, the first two processes of bhakti are shravanam, kirtanam, listening and speaking. So in this case, if I was brand new to it, I would hear the Bhagavatam on a regular basis.
So they're already listening to Wisdom of the Sages. So let's say it's 2 hours in the day, right? So like 1 hour is already Wisdom of the Sages. Now what?
Well, first we should understand that just listening is actually a process of bhakti.
Yeah.
And then from listening, questions will arise. So you speak. So you ask somebody. You write in a question. You find someone who's practicing, then you can ask a question too. And in that exchange, it's like the truth exchange. It's like the beginning. It's like the planting of the seeds. Mm-hmm. So the hearing and the chanting. So that's, maybe they're already doing it. They may not know, but that is the process right there. Then there is the adding sacred sound to your life. And when you start adding sacred sound a lot to your life, you start to realize how much of the sound is exhausting. Like sometimes I'll teach a yoga class, like 6 hours just talking, and it exhausts. Like just talking. So sometimes you realize that material sound exhausts us, so we add some sacred sound to our life. So we add some japa meditation, and everybody on Zoom, like Mara doesn't give out that secret code to get on Zoom unless they make a blood oath. Everybody here has made a blood oath. There's 74 people here. A blood oath. How do you do that? How do you make a blood oath, Mara, through email? It's like
it's all confidential, Raghu. I can't.
Okay.
Can't disclose.
It's like one of those computer when you sign signatures, DocuSign blood oath. They put your blood on this, and they make a blood, and then they get the secret codes to get in Zoom, and everybody makes a commitment to chant just one round of malas, one time around on your beads every day. And it's meditation. You sit there, you chant.
What do they chant?
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You see, there's many mantras out there, especially if you can get lost in the yoga world. People approach me all the time. Give me a mantra for wealth, Raghunath. No, they never say wealth. They always say abundance. I need an abundance mantra.
People ask you that?
No one wants to be so gross and come across say, I need a wealth mantra. I say, give me an abundance.
Money
mantra. I need some abundance. Or they say, give me a mantra for good fortune, or to sometimes even for finding.
People ask you that? Are these Indian people?
Yes. No.
Indian people. What?
No, not
people
Indian.
Come to you and they
people,
ask you for abundance mantras?
Many times I've got abundance. Mara did.
Really?
No, just kidding. Mara did. No, but people, people who know about yoga, but they know like it's more than physical. There's mantras out there. There's Devis and Devas. Those type of people, they want abundance mantras, or they want health mantras, or someone is, it's almost like how I grew up, praying for this, praying for that. Okay, well, Raghunath,
I asked you a question. You haven't.
So I say, give them the. I told you, give them the Maha mantra.
Well, no. I said they got an extra. They got 2 hours. One is listening to the Wisdom of the Sages. What are they going to do with that extra hour? Like, spell it out for us.
Okay. We'll keep it real simple. Here's another thing you can do. Whatever is at the center of your home, that means, like in the living room, you have it. Make another center of your home where there's a little altar, where there's maybe a picture of Krishna, a picture of Guru, whoever inspires you in bhakti. Whoever inspires you in bhakti. And
create
then
a little altar to Raghunath. Is that what you're asking them to do?
Yes, you set up an altar to me. If I inspire you in bhakti, you can do that. But whoever inspires you, and then what do you call it? You offer. Then what do you call it? Every day, if you go for a little walk and you're chanting, simple. You pick a flower. You put a flower there. You offer some incense. In that simple process of offering incense and flower, here's an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. People like incense, people like flowers, right? People like food, right? But now, whenever you're seeing a flower, you're thinking, oh, I want to offer that to Krishna. You light some incense regularly now. It's not just to make my house smell better. It's as an offering to Krishna. You will get that sweet smell anyway, but it's an offering. Okay. And you make that regularly. You just pick a flower regularly.
So you're saying that they should
food,
chant,
and you can offer some food.
They should get a japa mala, 108 beads on the string.
Yeah.
They should chant at least one japa. Let's say that takes them 10 minutes. So they got the 1
hour. Minutes?
Yeah, or less.
Or less.
So they got the 1 hour listen to wisdom of sages. They should chant 10 minutes or so this japa. They should have a little altar that they can meditate and make little offerings to. Maybe read 20 minutes of Bhagavad Gita, something like that every day.
There we go.
How's that?
Read before you go to bed. Read the first thing you wake up. Make the first things you put in your ears, and the last thing you put in your ears at night. Superfood.
Nice.
Don't fall asleep with the TV on. That's a setup for a bad dream.
Okay.
Sacred sounds.
And and I'll say this, that our sage groups are getting started now. So we got our first batch. It's going to start in
first batch of sage groups.
First batch of sage groups rolls out in the first week of December. And that means that you can join a group where there's about like 7 people in the group, and one group kind of like director, but it's really just an opportunity to discuss, right? There'll be talking points, to get to know each other.
How do they join that? Or they can't?
Well, right now they won't be able to, at least for a few months, unless they've already written in, but then we'll open it back up. But if you want to get on a waiting list, you can go ahead and write to us now. You write to wisdomofsages108@gmail.com. And just write Sage Groups and say, I would like to join Sage Groups when it's next available.
Basically, there's Sage Groups going on, and you can't get into them. They're really good.
Because we're doing the beta version. We're going to do it for 3 months and then see how we can improve it. And there'll be all kind of opportunities there again, because there'll be a whole team of really quality counselors, Bhakti-yogi counselors that are going to draw from these group members what are the most pressing issues in their life, and they're going to come forward with ways to address them, whether it's through workshops or through other groups or through videos or through one-on-one counseling, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you, Kaustubha.
This could be good, right?
Yeah. Well, what's going on is this is like sort of Bhakti in the West, like 3.0. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a new sort of in this. It's 2021, and it's like a new way to practice bhakti. Maybe we don't live near a temple. We'll most likely won't live in an ashram our entire life. We won't go barefoot through India, but you could still go to India. But it's not going to be like the way we went with no credit cards and no money. It's like it's a new. We have families. Some of us got into it later in life, in their 40s or in their 50s. And new things, new problems arise, as well as new benefits arise, opportunities. And so this is actually great.
Well, I'm excited. It's starting soon. I'm really excited. Again, we have it's something like 15 or 16 group leaders right now. And we've already made up the groups, and we're about to roll them out real soon. If you did write in, we'll be getting back to you real soon. You're going to get a letter saying, here's the day and the time and all that. But, you need some Sangha. You need some people. You need to be able to bring your questions forward. You need to bring your doubts forward, your challenges, your victories. You need a little Sangha to share that with. And this will be a way to do that.
I'm glad we did this morning about what if you don't know anything, or what to do on my spiritual path. Meredith just wrote, and she's like, I'm glad you're talking about this. I'm a complete bhakti newbie. Yeah. Right. We sometimes forget that people are brand new. They stumble into the podcast, but basically you're doing it right. Listen to wisdom of the sages, chant some japa, read a little from the Gita morning and inquire.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Mara, makes sense?
That's great. Thank you.
All right. And it was the last day of Kartik. It was sad to see it go.
Oh, man. It was sad but sweet, right? One of those bittersweet things.
Yeah. Okay. You know what month it is now? That's a trivia question.
Do I know what month it is?
Oh, Margasir.
Is it the month of Magh?
Magh's January, February, I think.
No, okay.
If you know what month it is, let us know. And don't say November.
And you know what? What's coming up? The next big thing coming up is that
Christmas?
Gita Jayanti, you know, that the day that the Gita is spoken. So just like we did the Bhadra Purnima, what do they call that? The Bhadra Purnima campaign, where we distributed all those sets and everyone stepped campaign. Up. We got to do a Gita campaign where you donate.
Everybody
Gita.
gets a Gita.
You can donate Gita. You can donate like whole cases of Gitas, and they'll send them to people, or they'll send them to you, and you can give them out to people, or you can send them to prisons, or you can send them to.
Guess what? Everybody's getting for Christmas this year.
A case of Bhagavad Gitas.
Bhagavad Gita. Cool. All right. Thank you. I think you'll like it. You're a thoughtful person.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we at, Mara? Canto 3.
Canto 3, chapter 28, and we're still on text 11.
All right. Come on. All right. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in the classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated. In loving service to the transcendental Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. All right, text 11. By practicing the process of pranayama, one can eradicate the contamination of his physiological condition. And by concentrating the mind, one can become free from all sinful activities. By restraining the senses, one can free himself from material association. And by meditating the personality of Godhead, one can become free from the gunas, the 3 modes of material attachment. We did read that yesterday.
We did read that, but we didn't discuss the whole thing because we were trying to get through it, right?
Yeah.
Remember? So again, this is climbing up a ladder towards samadhi, right? First thing it mentions is pranayama. What happens if you practice pranayama? What do you get from it? What's the benefit of it? Here it says that it can eradicate the contamination of one's physiological condition, right? And we discussed a little bit, but it is amazing what pranayama. It doesn't seem like it should do so much, but it actually
does a lot.
It really does. Yes. Okay, and then the next one was through Dharna, concentration of the mind. Right? By concentrating the mind, one can become free of all sinful activities. So we discussed that a bit yesterday too, but we didn't get too into it, right? But by bringing your mind to the right subject matter, by concentrating and holding it on something that's valuable and purifying, then we talked about the cycle of sin. Remember that?
Cycle of sin, that's right.
The cycle of karma, the cycle that we get into where we contemplate something, act based on it, reap the result of it, and also reap a psychological disposition towards it. That's a cycle, which in that psychological disposition towards it leads us to think about it and do it again, and you're in that cycle, right? And you have this repetitive behavior. Yeah. So through concentration, through dharna, one can break that cycle. Okay.
It's amazing how easy it is to get attached to something, and then it just becomes habitual. Yeah. And once it becomes habitual, then it starts to become you. Mm-hmm. Our habits become us.
Yeah, you got,
Okay.
there's something about that training as a monk that you get where it's kind of, you begin to realize I can break the cycles of my behavior because you're in the association and you place yourself in a situation where it's like, okay, I'm going with this. So it's just like, for instance, like jump in the cold river right now to bathe, right? Like normally, someone might think, no way I'm jumping in that water, but like you're kind of like, you're there and you're just like, well, this is what we do. And then you realize I can do this. And so you do it. And you begin to realize, okay, I can decide I'm not going to do this. And I can decide I am going to do this. But, most people have difficulty just turn off the television or stop scrolling down the thing, and and sometimes you're sitting there scrolling and scrolling away and you're saying, why am I doing, I just did this a minute ago and then I flipped to something else and I came right back and I'm doing it again. You're trapped in those cycles. When you have that training, and this is the next place we've got to go, Raghunath, when we get Super Soul going and people can come and spend a month or two or something like that. And
check your phone at the front gate.
Well, that, but also, just
give me your phone. I take everybody's phone. Delete delete WhatsApp and Tinder.
You have to leave your phone as well as your password to get into the phone, and you leave it there for
Raghunath has changed your password to your phone.
Okay, and so, but my point is, people can come there, kind of get that training. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to drag my butt out of bed. I'm going to wake up early, and experience that early morning, right? Jump in the pond.
Jump in the pond. That's how we do it here.
Yeah, but that kind of self-discipline, I don't think we learn that so much. You learn that as a monk, but most people don't go through that kind of, you do what you have to do. You get up to go to work and so on. But like this kind of, stuff that leads to spiritual sadhana, some of the stuff that you can do, you got to break those cycles, And so it's saying you do need to concentrate the mind to do that. So that's Dharna.
Yeah. Now one thing is that it's interesting how, like, sometimes you see how, like, a lot of the habits that we have are very deeply woven into the psyche. So you can even be, and we've seen it happen, people are very, almost like they're acting on a very high platform, sometimes for years. And then for some reason, they get off the path. It's like you think, well, there'll be a little, sometimes they go right back to those bad habits. Sometimes you have to, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's like they're deeply woven, those bad habits, to break them. And they haven't had the realization of how bad they are. And sometimes you don't even realize it. Like when I use this example, like sometimes when you're driving on the highway, when there's 10 cars going 65 miles per hour, you don't realize how fast those cars are going until you get off. And you're thinking, well, I'm not making that much advancement. And, this guy doesn't seem that advanced. And then you get out and you stop doing your practice and all of a sudden the cars are zooming by and you're sort of just standing there. And this is sort of what happens if we stop our practice. If you walk, some of you have a spiritual practice, if you walk away from it, thinking, well, I don't know if it's working, I'm not sure. Then you start to realize, wow, the bad habits start to creep back in very quick.
Well,
experience that. Write that on the board. Write their humiliating experience on the board, please.
But, there has to be recognition. And this recognition, it can be profound. And that is, I'm being controlled. Right, I am being. It's not my choice to just keep scrolling. It's not my choice to keep. My mind is dragging me to do this, and even when there's no satisfaction in it, even when there's no real happiness in it, but I'm just habituated now, and I'm just acting according to the control of my mind. So yoga means, it is about kind of like standing up for oneself in a sense, like reclaiming one's freedom, to not be ruled by the mind. And a lot of it looks to the mind. The mind rebels because that type of self-discipline, to the mind, it looks like there's no happiness there. There's no satisfaction there. There's no, there's no, nothing stimulating there. And in the beginning, it may not be because the mind doesn't like the taste of it. I don't like the taste of waking up early. I don't like the taste of spending the next half hour contemplating these, wisdom texts. It's too much for me, right? But you have to just do it, and then the mind starts to surrender, and now you're in control, right? Like you've made your mind do what you want it to do, and you get through that period of where there's no flavor, and quickly, you come to a place where there's like lots of flavor there and you begin to prefer it. And that's, you know, that's the key, like in retraining the mind. You're retraining the manas, right? Like that part of the mind that's programmed to think I like this and I don't like that. You're saying, I'm going to retrain it. I'm going to reprogram it so that the mind becomes the friend rather than the enemy, right? So rather than it controlling me and dragging me all kind of places that lead to no satisfaction, no happiness, no wisdom, nothing progressive, I'm taking control. Then I condition the mind. I begin to reprogram the mind where it begins to like to do all these things. And now it's my friend, and it's taken me to Vrindavan, and it's taken me to, you know, to Kirtan. It's taken me to all the places that actually, you know, elevate me.
I like it. It's a
good make the mind a friend, right?
A good cop, bad cop. Got a good mind, a bad, or bad? Mary, you got a good mind or a bad mind? What do you think?
I got a bad mind.
Come on.
You're here every morning. Okay, so then the next thing it says, by restraining the senses, pratyahara, right? Pratyahara. By restraining the senses, one can free oneself from material association. Kind of what we're talking about.
You just pratyahara. It just means you don't let your mind go there. You don't let your tongue go there. You don't let your genitals go there.
I mean, that is a way of restraining the senses, so that's there for sure. I mean, when we speak of pratyahara in the context of Ashtanga Yoga, I believe it has something to do, and honestly, it's not like I've ever delved into it deeply. Like you want to go into a place like Yogi True did, you know, you go to up in the Himalayas, or you go to like the Bihar School of Yoga or something, they'll be able to tell us more about that. But my understanding is, now that you've practiced asana and pranayama and you know, pratyahara means now that I can sit very still, I can close my eyes, I can kind of exist, like we talked a little bit about yesterday, kaya sthiram, where like I shut down my senses and I experience for segments of time life without the senses, right? Without that input, I can kind of dwell in a meditation where I'm kind of removed from the senses. I assume that the practices of pratyahara have something to do with that. But like you're saying, there's also the principle in terms of our own life that I'm not going to I'm going to restrain my senses. I'm not going to allow them to just go here and there. And so either way is a way that one can free oneself of material association. And material association means, again, the programming of the mind, where it's being hacked. It's not like we're in control of it. It's being hacked through the senses. My mind's being programmed by whatever I see or whatever I hear. Reprogram means I'm going to determine what I see, and I'm going to determine what I hear, and I'm going to program it with what I want it to be programmed with. So pratyahara means restraining of the senses. And then the last one is, it says dhyana, meditation, right? The ability now to focus my mind for longer periods of time on one object, and that object is going to be revealed here as Lord Vishnu. So by meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what can happen? One can become free from the three modes of material attachment, right? Which is really the goal of yoga. That as this is such a huge concept, and it's something that we learn absolutely nothing about in our regular life. But the significance and the gravity of the idea that as we move through this world, every object is radiating a particular influence, right? That's seeping in to our mind through our senses. Some things are influencing it towards self-destruction, you know, towards violence, towards laziness.
Can I share something embarrassing?
What'd you do?
Well, you know, I'm going through a divorce, and you know, I've been sort of like staying out of the way, pretty much. Hence my lots of travel. But you know, I'm just going through I call it stinking thinking. You know, when you just like you let the mind start to own you, and you go into these turbo scenarios of spite, revenge. Anger. You start playing out almost like sort of like darker fantasies in the mind about, you know, getting back at someone, and it's like you fall down a set of stairs. Just literally, you'll be walking around doing it. You'll be laying in your bed, and you're living in these turbo scenarios in the mind, and it's like bringing up the worst version of myself ever. And you realize, like, no, I'm not. just to allow you to go down these paths in the mind. Like these thoughts are things that are starting to take over my consciousness. And there's some, we put some buffers in there in Bhakti. We don't resent. We let go of resentment. We don't act out of spite. We don't act out of revenge. Krishna's in control. Whatever's happening, even like these turbulent thing where you feel like the world's out to get you or people are out to get you, these aren't happening to me. They're happening for me. Krishna's got a plan. Krishna's got a greater plan. Krishna's agenda is exponentially better than my agenda. Trust Krishna. Let go. Accept that these things are happening for your benefit, for your upliftment. Just keep adding Krishna and it will get more auspicious. But don't go down these darker trails like you used to in the old incarnation of yourself, where you can get back. You've got an agenda. These people are wrecking your agenda. How dare they? That's where I was hanging out yesterday.
Thank you for sharing that, because it actually is so entirely relevant. It's like, if you don't, you see, there's all different kinds of wisdom traditions in the world, and then there's kind of like our modern self-help culture, and then and there's Rumi quotes, and there's Instagram threads.
The Rumi quotes.
Yeah, but I'm not necessarily criticizing. I mean, it's good that people want to reach out and think a little bit more deeply about life, but how that can be superficial, or even if it's not superficial, even if it's like genuine and helpful, still I find like in this yoga tradition, in this Bhagavatam tradition, and in general the yoga tradition coming from India, it's going to describe the same. In other words, like someone could respond to what you just said. It was like, hey, you have to have positive mental attitude, right? Like I've found in life that when I start to dwell on negative things, that nothing good comes from it, and let me focus on something positive. That's a good thing. I'm not saying that, and I appreciate that. I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but I'm saying what happens when we begin to study Bhagavad Gita, when we begin to study Bhagavatam or Yoga Sutras, whatever it may be, you're going to find a very detailed account about the science and how it all works, right? You're going to find what you were just saying right now is that occurs to you naturally because you've been trained to recognize the influence of these gunas. And so even though there may be justification in some of the feelings that you have and so on, you can recognize right now my mind has gone to a tamastic place. It's a destructive place. And I know that the result of tamagun is misery. So what am I doing here? And what's the value? And I know that it's self-perpetuating, that it increases. So, it goes in cycles like a snowball. Am I going to allow myself to go there? I see that it's happening. And then what's the most potent and effective means of eradicating it? And here that said that if you can meditate, right, and it may sound religious. It's
not revenge. Revenge
it's not revenge. That won't relieve it. But, although it may sound religious, really the yogi's looking at it more as scientific, right? That like Krishna will say, he'll do a great part in the 7th chapter, right? 7th chapter, such a great chapter, Bhagavad Gita.
Favorite chapter.
Is just your favorite?
7 and 9 are my favorite.
Okay, so it's a chapter that it follows the conclusion of the first 6 chapters, which end with like, okay, Arjuna, you can't be an Ashtanga yogi, right? Like he finally gets it in the 6th chapter. Like, it's not my path to wander off into the forest and become a quiet meditator. I've got to perform my duty in this world, but do it with knowledge, do it with detachment, and do it as a devotional offering. And so Krishna concludes that by saying, don't think that kind of yoga is like less than the meditator out in the forest. And Krishna says, as a matter of fact, the highest yogi of all is one who's always meditating on me deeply within themselves, right? And so then that leads to the question, well, how do I do that? How do I bring my mind to you? How do I meditate on you deeply within myself? And Krishna begins by describing the difference between material and spiritual energy, how we are made of spiritual energy, how we are made of spiritual energy, trapped within a body of material energy, trying to enjoy the material energy, but that all of the energy is his, right? That everything's resting on me like pearls are strung on a thread. And then he begins to describe how you can see him in everything, right? How you can adjust your goggles so that when you see the sun, when you see the moon, when you drink water, etc., in all the different elements, They're his elements, and you make the connection, and you begin to live in that state of mind. And then, so he says how you can see him in all different kind of manifestations, in all the different three modes. And then he says this. He says, know that all states of being, be they goodness, passion, or ignorance, right? These three modes of nature, they're all manifested by my energy. That's what I've been describing to you, right? And he says, I am in one sense everything, like anything that you see is my energy, right? But I am independent. I have an existence beyond it all. And I'm not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. And then he says, deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. And so here comes the clue, and this is how we understand. That's 7:12. I'm sorry, 7:13. But then comes 7:14, right? Very famous verse, and very relevant to what we're discussing here. Deluded by the three modes, this divine energy of mine, the three modes of material nature, right? This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, right? We get trapped by it. We get controlled by it. It's making us do stuff. We think we're in control. It's controlling us, right? We're caught in turbo scenarios. We're caught in habits. It's making us depressed. It's making us angry. It's making us greedy. It's sending it, twisting us and grinding us, through its own control. Krishna's saying it's difficult to overcome that, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Easily, right? When you he just said that I'm beyond it. By meditating on me, you are automatically, you become lifted beyond it. He lifts you beyond it. So that same message that's very important in the Gita, we find reflected here in this verse again, where he says, as he's climbing up that yoga ladder from pranayama, and he talks about pratyahara, he talks about dharna, and then he talks about dhyana, meditation, real meditation. He says, by meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can become free from the three modes of material attachment. It's the most potent and powerful. It's very effective, because you're meditating on pure spiritual energy in its most dynamic and attractive and powerful manifestation, the very form of Krishna. So now, there'll be a few more verses, but then that form will be described so that one can focus on it in great detail.
Someone wrote me a private message.
Yeah, we had to do something while I was talking so much, right?
I was listening because it was 7th chapter, but okay. I noticed that there was a private message to me on the side. But they said their husband left them. Their husband left them after many years. And they said it's by wisdom of the sages, or hearing the Bhagavatam, they gave up the desire to want them dead.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you can live and stew in a pot of revenge. Because it seems like this happened to me. You did everything wrong. Here's the actual picture. And we point out some partial truth. The partial truth is they left me, and I gave a lot to them, and they left me. And that is a partial truth. We're not zooming out, seeing the entire truth. And sometimes, that is the truth. And sometimes it's just what I'm repeating again and again, and it turns into stone. It becomes, no, that is exactly how it happened. I'm not going to take any responsibility, but whatever it be, they left, and I'm feeling revenge. And you can stay in that for longer than the marriage was. You can just stew in revenge, and you can live there, and it affects all your choices going forward. It affects who you trust. It affects or your level of trust. And that past starts to affect every choice you make going forward. And we end up can't moving forward. And so, these simple principles of the Gita, the mind, the buffers, the roadblocks, we can't go that. The revenge road is blocked. There's like a, what do you call when they put up a
roadblock?
Roadblock. You call it a roadblock. What do you call it when you block the road? You can put up a roadblock. No, you can't go down that revenge path anymore. We don't allow it for your health and well-being and spiritual growth. We're not going to allow it. And there's ways we just like steer the car through the detour where it seems like we want to go this way. That's the way we go, right? No, we don't go to revenge. We don't go to spite. We don't go to stewing and resentment. We just can't go there anymore. Why? Because we've meditated on the results of that. And the great sages have said, don't go there. It's not, don't you understand? Krishna actually is in control. I thought I had some control out there. I don't. Krishna's in control. And Krishna is benevolent, meaning he's all good. And that situation is all good. And life is eternal. And therefore, everything is happening for my spiritual enhancement. You know, maybe in the material world, it would be nice to have a long-going relationship. Maybe for my spiritual growth, I may not get exactly what I want, but that's what I need to grow.
Raghunath, you're talking about forgiveness here. That very powerful spiritual principle, right? It defines the sages. And I have two references to draw from.
Jesus.
No.
Jesus was all about it.
One of them is Yudhishthir, who, and it's something we read a long time ago, but I could read that again. But you know, I was trying to pull up a nugget, and I didn't pull up this one. But now we're right on the subject. So this is Persian wisdom. You ready?
Yeah, Persian wisdom. Okay, great.
Persian. I don't know the people being spoken about here, who they are exactly, but Abu Ghanafakh died in Abu Ghanafakh. He died in a prison in Baghdad, in which he'd been put by Caliph al-Mansur. Anybody knows anything about this, let us know on the chat board. For refusing to accept the teaching of Qad. Okay. Once before his death, when this famous spiritual teacher received a heavy blow from a guard, he told the man who hit him, right? So he's a spiritual teacher. He's been imprisoned, apparently unfairly. Now the guard has struck him an injury.
Roughing him up.
Yeah. So once before his death, when this famous spiritual teacher had received a heavy blow from a guard, he told the man who hit him, I could render you an injury after you have done an injury to me. I could complain to the caliph, but I will not complain. In my prayers, I could tell God about this offense which you have done to me, but I will refrain from this. During the day of final judgment, I could ask divine revenge for your act. But even if this day comes today, and even if I knew that my prayer would be heard, even then I would enter paradise only with you. That's nice, isn't it?
Very nice.
Like
Where do you get this stuff from?
From A Calendar of Wisdom.
A little book, a calendar?
Leo Tolstoy. Yeah, it's a book that like every day has a few statements, usually on like a particular subject. It'll have nuggets. It's a book of nuggets, basically, a calendar of wisdom. Daily thoughts to nourish the soul, written and selected from the world's sacred texts by Leo Tolstoy. Calendar of wisdom. But this is Yudhishthir speaking to Draupadi about forgiveness, right? Yudhishthir was questioned by Draupadi about his forgiving nature. This is from Mahabharata. Draupadi wasn't always pleased by Yudhishthir's forgiving nature, right?
Yeah. No, sometimes, you know, when someone's so forgiving, you'd be like, oh, come on. Because they may not be at that place. Get him. He deserves it. Crush him. Even Krishna sometimes said that. He would
Dharma can be difficult.
Egg on Bhima. He'd say, oh, come on. He deserves to be killed for what he did.
Yeah. But Yudhishthir had this strong forgiving nature, which Draupadi even would question, are you even a warrior? You know?
No.
Right? It's
like emasculating.
You're like a Brahmin. There. You're like a Brahmin. So Yudhishthir was questioned
There's this thing where we're like always trying to weigh out in those situations between justice and mercy.
That's right.
And there's a scale that we weigh on. And the devotee has them both. We just don't want justice all the time. And you can't have a relationship if you're always with anybody if you always want justice. There always has to be some give and take with mercy as well.
But even within justice, it doesn't mean that internally one can't be forgiving.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so here, so Yudhishthir says, Yudhishthir was questioned by Draupadi about his forgiving nature. He had lost his kingdom, all his riches, himself, his brothers, and his wife. Right? He had lost them all to Duryodhana. Yet his mood toward the Kauravas, which includes Duryodhana was forgiving. How could he be so docile? How could he be so weak? Her point was that under no circumstances should you show forgiveness towards your enemies. It didn't matter whether Yudhishthira won or lost the battle, but he should maintain his pride. Draupadi then refers to a question placed by Bali to Prahlad. Right? So Bali was the grandson of Prahlad. And Bali asked Prahlad, revenge is not always superior, nor is forgiveness always superior. I'm sorry, my bad. Draupadi then refers to a question placed by Bali to Prahlad. Does forgiveness lead to welfare, or is it better to seek revenge? And Prahlad's answer is long and nuanced. It begins with this statement, revenge is not always superior, nor is forgiveness always superior. Then Yudhishthira goes on, and this is what Yudhishthira says about forgiveness. He says, forgiveness is virtue. Forgiveness is sacrifice. I mean, if you can meditate on each one of these, like forgiveness is sacrifice, what does that mean? It means I do it to please God, right? Like, it's not just like I'm sitting here all alone in my act of sacrifice of forgiving, but I do it because I know it'll please God within my heart. I know it'll please God within the heart of the person that I'm forgiving. So it becomes a sacrifice, right? Forgiveness is virtue. Forgiveness is sacrifice. Forgiveness is the Vedas. Forgiveness is the Shruti, right? It is the ancient sacred text. Those that are capable of forgiving, those who know this are capable of forgiving everything. Forgiveness is Brahma, the spiritual energy. Forgiveness is truth. Forgiveness is stored ascetic merit. Forgiveness is powerful, right? Forgiveness protects the ascetic merit. How do people become powerful spiritual influences? It's stored ascetic merit, right? It's like through forgiveness. Forgiveness protects the ascetic merit of the future. Forgiveness is asceticism. Forgiveness is holiness, and it is by forgiveness, it is by forgiveness that the universe is held together. Very interesting, right? Whether that be the big universe or the micro or macro, the small or small universe, it's held together by forgiveness. Persons that are forgiving attain to the regions obtainable by those that have performed meritorious sacrifices, or those who are well conversant with the Vedas, or those that have high ascetic merit. Those that perform Vedic sacrifices are also those that perform the meritorious rites of religion and obtain higher regions. Those of forgiveness, however, obtain those much adored regions that are in the world of spirit. Forgiveness is the might of the mighty. Forgiveness is sacrifice. Forgiveness, and this is a great one, right? Forgiveness is a quiet mind. Right.
That is a great one, huh?
Yeah, forgiveness is a quiet mind.
Because when I'm resentful, the mind is like banging garbage can lids together on it all day. Yes. Every time your mind comes to a halt, it goes right to there. It goes right to, I've been hurt. I've been beat up. I have to get back at them. It's so unfair what they've done to me. And that can last a long time. That can last, 30 or 40 years.
Being imprisoned by it, right?
Imprisoned by it. Imprisoned with my peace of mind. And it doesn't mean that if someone actually did something criminal, we should just say, welcome them back into my life. If someone was beating me in a relationship, it doesn't mean forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean now I go back into that relationship. No, the person can still have to go to prison. The person you could never see that person again, but you've pardoned the debt that they've taken from you. They've taken something from you.
Right.
And you've pardoned that debt. They no longer have to give that back. And generally, they can't give it back oftentimes, what they've done. They can't, because if we have been taken from us, they took our innocence, they took our money, they took our
trust,
our best years of my life, whatever. They can't give that back. But I can forgive. And I can forgive them even from a distance and let go of that. And I'm not saying it's an easy process too. Just like, learning how to do a handstand is not an easy process. And sometimes these have been deeply woven down into us just like a tree that's been growing for a long time. You can't just you can pull a little sapling out. You can't pull out an oak tree if we've been sitting with resentment for many years as well.
Well, that's what, like, that is why, like what he's saying here, it's stored ascetic merit. In other words, this is real. This is substantial. We may have our spiritual inclinations and they may play out in all kind of superficial ways.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The way we dress, the language that we use, we read a book or two, we attend certain events, and we think ourselves spiritual. But when he says that forgiveness, is stored ascetic merit, it means it's like ascetic merit means like, that means, people like, sleep in caves and, sit still for, hours and days and months and years at a time, and, like really hard stuff to do. Well, forgiveness is like that, right? It's hard. But it's substantial. It's real. It's not superficial. It's a very genuine, and its results are very profound. So then this is how Yudhishthira wraps this up, and this is Lady Di is asking, where is it? This is from Mahabharata. He says, "How, O Draupadi, can one like us abandon forgiveness, which is such, and in which are established Brahma, spirituality, and truth, and wisdom, and the worlds? The person of wisdom should ever forgive, for when he is capable of forgiving everything, he attains the spiritual realm. The world belongs to those who are forgiving. The other world is also theirs. The forgiving acquire honors here and a state of blessedness hereafter. Those people that ever conquer their wrath by forgiveness obtain the higher regions. Therefore, it's been said that forgiveness is the highest virtue." Mic drop.
Forgive me,
must have been like, okay, all right, I accept.
That was from the Mahabharata.
Yeah.
That was Krishna Dharma's version of the Mahabharata.
I'm not sure what version I got it from.
It was good, man.
Good stuff, right?
It was great stuff.
I mean, imagine Draupadi, who's like, in one sense, the way that she was treated, dragged in there by her hair, insulted in that way and everything. It's so cruel, and so in one sense, everything that she's saying is justified. Why are you forgiving? Why aren't you attacking them right now? Why aren't you, like dealing with this? In one sense, very reasonable. And in order to appease her, I mean, what Yudhishthira would have to say, but what he has to say, this is coming from a mind of a person whose mind was so well guarded and well trained and so well nourished with wisdom.
And oftentimes the justice doesn't come from us. Like, for example, someone hurt me, someone did something criminal against me. Generally, my job is to forgive. And this is what we train. We're training ourselves and each other and the Zoomers and the others to be brahmanas. Like, we are the forgivers. We're not the ones who are saying, okay, I'm going to go get karma on Mara for what she did. We're not thinking like that. The justice comes from like the heads of state, the police, or the universe, whatever. But the interesting thing about what you're reading is Yudhishthira and his brothers are the justice givers.
That's right.
They are the warriors. They're the ones who are actually supposed to give justice.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about like, well, I'm going to give this guy his karma. No, our job is to forgive. Let the cops or the government or person's bad choices have them get their justice on their own. We have to learn how to forgive.
You just, this, what happens later, right when they're out in the forest, and now they're living in exile due to the cruelty of Duryodhana. And that scene where, what's his name? Duryodhana and Karna, they come out to the forest just to see the Pandavas suffering. And they come there with like a whole entourage, more or less to have a party right in their face and watch them suffer, right? And then, but what happens is they get themselves in trouble. And there's some very powerful Gandharva warrior, right? And they do battle with that Gandharva, and they lose, and they're in trouble. And Yudhishthira gets word of it, and what does he do? He sends his brothers to go and free them. He could have he didn't even have anything to do with it. He could have just let them, right. Hey, you get what you deserve. He was so forgiving. He said, well, he sent his brothers out to help the people that had mistreated him so much. His forgiveness was so deep, so profound, so thorough. He, in one sense, favorite character there, Fem. And you say yours is Karna? Come on, Raghunath.
Well, come on. I'm just not my favorite. I want to be like him.
Okay.
Although I was listening to the Mahabharata yesterday.
Get into some Karna Leela. Karna?
There was a lot of Karna was
his impressive side.
Karna was fighting Gatotkacha.
Oh, what a battle that was!
Bhima's young son, who was a Rakshasa, turned good. It was great battle.
Good stuff. Mara?
We got good takeaways. We do.
Wow, it's late, man.
The road is narrow and dangerous, so we need instructions.
True.
Listen, chant, read, and inquire to start and end your day.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Material sound is exhausting. We need sacred sounds.
Exhausting.
Yoga is reclaiming our freedom from the mind.
I like that one. Who said that?
Say it again.
Yoga is reclaiming our freedom from the mind.
Who made up that one?
Kaustubha.
Well, someone shared it, right?
Did someone share it? Well,
no, I think Kaustubha
said it
out of your mouth.
and
I think
you just hashtag it.
Okay.
It's amazing. I like what just flows out of the mouth sometimes. I like that one.
Okay, Robin.
That's
your tattoo.
Thoughts are things let go of resentment.
Hmm.
Everything is happening for my spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Put a roadblock on the revenge road.
Good.
Yeah. Road closed.
The universe is held together by forgiveness, and
Very
forgiveness is a quiet mind.
You know what?
And
The
it's the
universe
high
is being
virtue.
held together by forgiveness, because without forgiveness, it's like chaos.
Yep, it is.
Right?
It is.
It's just chaos.
Everything
It's
falls apart.
Everything's hating. The law of entropy. Things are falling apart, wrecking.
The law of entropy.
The law of it, yes. Thanks, everybody, for joining us early in the morning, 5 a.m. By the way, the 5 a.m.s had a big revolt on the message board. Kaustubha. They were like,
Tomorrow's Q&A
5.
day. Right?
Oh, good.
And you're trying to pull a guest together for Sunday?
Trying to pull one.
Get busy with it. It's getting late.